Okay, I suppose we'll begin. Good morning all, my name is James Tomlinson. I am the UK Channel Manager for Komodo. So today we're going to be going over a presentation for the Endpoint Security Manager. So we're accompanied by Georgiana. Georgiana will be going through the product features and benefits of the actual application itself. So what I'll do is I'll go through a few of the details on what really, who we are, where we've come from, what we do, and I suppose more to the point, how we differ from all the other AV vendors out there. So to start with, I think we're going to go, so there we go, so the portfolios, but we're going to go through legacy AV, and then we'll go for the ESM feature for Georgiana. So we're a privately held company, founded in 1998. This was over in Bradford in the UK. 4 years after conception, we moved over to the States, where our headquarters is over in Clifton, New Jersey. We now have 1,400 members of staff. Around 1,200 of those are research and development. We are a very heavily led tech company. Marketing, no, it's not so much, but definitely on the tech side of things. We are the world's largest provider for SSL certificates, Symantec number 2, which is great. But yeah, so based upon our solutions there, and we work in an array of different areas. So the SSL side of things is where I suppose we're more famous, but we actually have a huge portfolio. These range, so I mean, one of the ones we're going to go through today is the Endpoint Security Manager. The other solutions we have, I mean, ones that would be a direct tie-in with the Endpoint Security Manager, and if you haven't yet spoken about this with your account manager, I'll definitely broach the subject. Anti-spam gateway, I mean, this is a solution which fits hand in hand with the Endpoint Security. Endpoint Security, of course, stops the viruses if they ever get into the device in the network. But the anti-spam solutions stop the viruses from getting within the environment. So it's a pre-perimeter defense for all the mail flow that goes into Exchange. And they say these days around 70 to 80% of viruses come in via email. So beforehand it was optical drive and USB sticks and external memory. But now it's more mainly the easiest route in for that person creating the viruses to get into the environment is definitely via the mail flow. So this is so the anti-spam gateway, just touching it briefly. It's got 186 days worth of spooling. So if your Exchange server went down, you can actually log into the Exchange server. There's a new feature which is released for this, so the end users can actually log into the cloud platform and access their emails. So forward, send, reply, etc., etc. The administrator can log in and pull down a full archive. But yeah, so it's good for continuity that way, and obviously if the Exchange server went down, you still want to have access to those emails, and it's entirely possible with the platform. There is mobile device management, so that is for all mobile devices that you have connecting to the network. So these will be the standard things like location services to find out where that device is if it's been lost. If someone's tried to access it, it'll have policy control for applications, among other things. So if someone was to try and access your iPhone or Android, and they typed in the PIN number, it would actually take a photograph of who was trying to do that straight away, and that would be uploaded to the server where it's hosted, and then you can have access to that. And you can obviously, if it's important information, you can even send messages as well to the phone to open on the display screen saying if lost, please return to. This is a whole different area of features. I mean, those are the three main products that you deal with the distributor, and obviously UTM appliance and my DLP for data loss prevention. There is a huge range of portfolio, so don't be afraid to ask the questions with your account managers. We can always get through and find out the details that way. Okay, so I suppose now we're going to go on to talk about AV. Everyone here would have heard of AV. The question really to ask is, do you know how it works? It's a question that I've kind of stumbled on over the last few months, which is kind of imperative, really. I mean, I speak with a lot of partners on a regular basis, and I suppose being able to differentiate between the marketing terms for AV, AVG, Avira, Bitdefender, Trend Micro, ESET, Sophos, Kaspersky, McAfee, all of these guys operate on the same architecture. And we call this a legacy architecture, and we've even had conversations with Symantec, and they've agreed that this approach that they've all been using, it doesn't work. And since the mid-80s, the actual stance on premise hasn't changed. So to go through, how it works. So if you were to have a file come into your environment, it's mainly to find out whether or not that file is allocated as a bad file. So the three kind of files we're going to talk about are known bad, known good, and unknown. So the threats don't come from the known bad, because we know they're bad, and generally they have a way of removing, and I do say removing, and I make the point that it is removing it from the estate. The known good you don't have an issue with because it's a fine file, but it's the unknown, and the unknown is where we see the issue. So everyone with the legacy architecture has no defense against the unknown files. So they're yet to be discovered, whether or not good and bad. And if they're good, they're okay. But if they're bad, we have a bit of an issue. So the known good, straight away, you're allowed into the device. If you're known bad, okay, we're going to send you off to a little prison. So within that little prison, they're going to sit there and they're going to get removed. That's the quarantine. So after a scan has been done, they've gone, okay, they've cross-referenced. So the way that it works is that it cross-references the blacklist. The blacklist has two features within inside it. It has an identification file and it has a removal file, and that is for every single virus which they're aware of. So when a scan is performed, the identification file will be cross-referenced with what is on your device. If it identifies a virus, you're going to go, okay, so the next step is now to remove this virus. Of course, that's the removal file. It's the stuff which generally has the concern is the unknown files. So if you're going to let an unknown file into your environment, it's pretty much a gamble. You don't know whether or not it's going to be good. You don't know if it's going to be bad. But if it turns out it is bad, you've now got an infection on your device and probably the network. And this is where, I suppose, where other devices, other antivirus can identify and remove it. The problem is it's being removed. It means it's already on the estate. The more problem then is what happens if it's a virus which has an extreme impact on your estate. I know a lot of you guys here today will have known of the CryptoLocker virus. You have heard of it. You may have had customers who've suffered with it. So CryptoLocker was it was a piece of ransomware. So what it did is it got sent through via email generally as an attachment, as a PDF, as a zip file. AV scanners can't scan zip files. So until it's unzipped, they're not going to know there's a virus inside it. And when it is unzipped, it'll execute, and then poor Susan and accounts just infected the entire network. Okay, so what it did, it had 256 AES encryption. And for those who don't know what 256 AES encryption is, it's a military-grade encryption. The algorithm was been around for around 20 years now. It has never been broken. And there's no foresight for it to be broken either. So what this would do would encrypt your entire network. So you could see, the desktop. You could see all the icons on the back for these shortcuts, but you couldn't click on anything. You couldn't access anything. You couldn't do. Well, you lost all full functionality of your device in the network. So this is obviously you can imagine how detrimental the impact is towards your client, who they're now suffering with this kind of virus, and they're going to ring you up and say, why isn't my protection saved us from this? So going through the steps with the identification of CryptoLocker, because it's an algorithm which changes on a repeated basis, there was no way of it to identify it before it acted, and that's where the problem really lied. So people who had CryptoLocker, they had two options, they had two choices. Either they paid the ransom, which was around 500 bitcoins. I don't know if that was per instance, but it was around that figure. And what it would do, give you 48 hours to pay that. Otherwise, it would destroy the encryption key, and then you'd lose access to your network indefinitely. So the other option was to do a restore to a previous backup, and for those guys out there that do backup solutions for your customers, you'll be aware that it's not about how good the backup is, it's about how good the recovery is. And from my own personal experience with Symantec Backup 2012, it would generally take around 3 days. And there are other solutions out there which do it much quicker, which you can spin up in a virtualization and be back on the network within 20-30 minutes, which is great. Not many people have that solution, and I think there's only one vendor out there that I know of that does it. So it's the recovery time. I mean, you would lose around a working week, 25% of the month, and of course, to any business, especially if you're within the SMB market, it's going to be huge. So what we'll do now is we're going to talk about Komodo's ESM products and why that is different. So we talked about the default allow. Default allow basically will allow everything which is unknown into your environment, and at the end of the day, if it is a bad file, it will be on your environment anyway, and then it gets removed after it's scanned. And blacklists around 35 to 45% accurate at any given time. The reason of that is, I mean, reports say that it's around 50,000 viruses are created every single day. Our own labs, they believe it's more like 200,000 viruses every single day. And of course, I mean, these viruses, they don't start as known bad files, they're all unknown. And the way that they get known is they go into your environment, they infect you, you ring up tech support. Tech support will ask you for the log files, you'll send them across, and then they'll sit there and they'll work out how to identify the file. So they'll go through a log and go, oh, okay, that's where the impact happened. And then they'll work on a remediation, so how to remove that file. So earlier when I said through, the blacklist really contains of two main things, identification file and removal file. So the identification happens first, and then the removal file is then what's created. So the period, I mean, that can take a couple of weeks to do, like 2-3 weeks sometimes. And what they call that period, so the moment from you're infected to the moment they've made a remediation, is a 0-day attack. So effectively, what they're saying, a 0-day attack is a very a clever marketing term for we haven't made a fix yet. And it's pretty much as simple as that. I mean, it's the period of a time where the vendor has identified a virus but hasn't worked out how to remove it yet. I mean, that's what they call 0-day attacks and APTs, and they're all very clever marketing terms. But the fact is, this legacy approach doesn't work. So this is where we've flipped that on the head, and we've got a default in architecture. So rather than saying if you're on the blacklist, then you're not allowed in. Actually, we're saying if you're not on the whitelist, we're not going to allow you to come in. So all the known good files on the whitelist, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, we know they're safe. That's all right. So we can stick them into we're allowed them onto the device and the network, which is fantastic. The stuff where we don't know, of course, just like everyone else. Yeah, we stick it into a jail cell where we've removed it from the environment. Everything which is unknown, and this is where we differ. So all those viruses that are created every single day, all those potential unknown threats that are out there, we don't just let it straight into the device. We have a fully automated containment engine, and what that'll do is everything which is unknown, that file will sit in that environment until we have identified it as good or bad. Effectively the technology previously is known as sandbox. The sandbox was heavy on resources and it wasn't automated and it was very, very slow. And I suppose, but I mean, that is a way to picture it. It is a sandbox environment but fully automated, and it only uses 7.5 meg worth of RAM. So it's very, very low on resource intensity. It's actually used in real time. There's no delay in anything at all. The end user won't even know it's running, and that's the main thing. It's seamless. It's just part of the technology that sits there in the background. And until either you or I have identified this as a good or bad file, I say you or I, Komodo Labs, or you as the administrator has identified this as a good or bad file, it will reside in that contained environment. So I mean, if it is a bespoke piece of application and it's sitting in there and you want it to run within a normal environment, you can right-click, add to whitelist, no problem. Likewise, if it's a malicious virus, you can just remove it with no issues whatsoever. So, all right. So for me, that is all. I'm going to hand you now over to Georgiana. So I hope that this part of the presentation has made sense. I mean, realistically, what makes a massive difference is about the architectures. So what we do, rather than identifying a virus and then removing it from the estate, we isolate that virus and prevent it from ever happening. So if it is something like the cryptocurrency virus, which it changed on each instance of infection, it's not going to be an issue. It will reside in that environment. We actually have had this architecture with the solutions for around 6.5 years now, and over that period of time, we've never had a legitimate claim where the solution has failed. It's actually very, very simple once you've got your head around it. I don't really know why it's taken so long for a solution like 25 years into the AV industry, why it's not happened. So I mean, we do offer, and one thing that Georgiana will lead on to later, but one thing I'm going to just mention now, because of our architecture, we are the only people out there that have this architecture. We are the market leaders in containment. Over the next 12 to 24 months, you're going to hear the likes of AVG, Avira, Bitdefender, Trend Micro, ESET, Sophos, Kaspersky, all saying the same thing sheet, and they're going to start talking about containment. So we actually, I'm sure some of you are aware, and it's probably some of the reason why you're here today, is that we actually offer with our solution 100% virus-free guarantee. We don't just guarantee this. We have a third-party organization called Chubb Insurance. They are the 8th largest insurance underwriter globally, and they back our solution for $5,000 per instance. So it's not per estate or per environment, it's actually per instance. So effectively, though you want to think of it, it's per device. And that is US dollars as well, because that's where the agreement was made. But the actual solution itself is born globally, and it covers globally as well. So it's the same equivalent, so what, £3,300, whatever it be. But yeah, so we have this very bold claim, we have this very smart statement, and we back it 100%. And more than happy to welcome any questions from it. But right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass you over to Georgiana. Georgiana, are you there?
Yes.
Super. Right, well, guys, thanks very much so far. Georgiana, over to you.
Okay. James, if you can pass me also the screen.
Sure thing. Right, I've just made you the panelist presenter. Does that help?
Yes. Thank you.
Super.
Okay. So now you can see my screen. What you see now, it's the Comodo Endpoint Security Manager console. And each tile represents an endpoint that is protected with Comodo Endpoint Security. And as you see, we have first glance, so the administrator has first glance at all the endpoints and what issues he needs to attend from the endpoint. But first, we will take a look at the 5 security layers that are bundled in our product, and speak about the 5 security layers. From the policies, we have default policies already bundled into the package. The administrator just needs to clone these and then modify them with the security settings that he needs to set up in his network. So we'll take a recommended workstation policy because it's easier for the administrator to enable the warranty because it has already the security layers that need to be enabled on the endpoint. So we'll double click it and we'll take a look at the first security layer is the firewall, and it does inbound and outbound traffic monitoring. It's ICSA certified, so it's leak proof. It will stop any traffic done by any unauthorized application using a genuine application. To make the administrator's job easier, he can use different security levels. Training mode for the rules to be created automatically into the firewall. Of course, we are presuming that the endpoint, it was clean previously, so it's clean and it doesn't have any infections. Safe mode, it's a more relaxed mode. It will trust any applications to do traffic that are in our trusted vendors and trusted file list. Custom rule set, if the administrator wants to do his own rules, he doesn't want to rely on the trusted list or trusted vendors, he can go more strict. Create the networks, allow some application in traffic or outbound traffic, and also in case of emergency, block any in or out traffic. So even if it's local or if it's over the internet, it will block all traffic. So this is the first security layer. The next security layer is the host intrusion prevention, and it's one of our whitelisting options. What we do, we monitor inter-process memory access, window event hooks, device driver installation, process termination. So for those unknown files that are trying to do any of these actions, also, we do monitoring for Windows messages, DNS, RPC client service. We also protect the COM interfaces, files and folders, and registry keys. And we have a default list automatically bundled into the policy. And this can be accessed by the administrator and can be customized. Of course, we will also monitor the physical memory, computer monitor, disk, and keyboard. The next security layer is the antivirus. It's based on signatures and the heuristics. It's a real-time scanner, and by default with the policy, it's enabled. Also, any threat that it's found based on the signatures and the heuristics, it's placed automatically without any user interaction into the quarantine, and the administrator is able to use the centralized quarantine to delete, restore, or whitelist the threat. Maybe it's a false positive. Also, we enable the full scan, so to schedule a full scan, you can do it daily, weekly. Let me scroll down. So you can choose from the settings weekly, monthly, and you can choose the hour when it should run. And also set up the settings for each scan. We also provide the quick scan, so only to scan those areas that are usually commonly infected, like the temp folder, other like the app data folder from the users, and so on. So mainly those areas that are commonly infected. But the administrator is able to create custom scheduled scans, so he can provide a path. Let's say if I want to scan the C drive, and also choose from the regions, the memory or commonly infected areas, and the administrator can add also other settings too. If let's say it's a false positive, using the option from the centralized quarantine, it will whitelist it based on the hash of the file. Let's say if that file, it changes the hashes, it will end up still in the quarantine. So if we want to do the whitelisting or the exclusions based on a file, or based on a path, or we can create a group of files and then add it to exclusions, and we can add an entire folder and so on. Wildcards can be used, and other types of exclusions can be created. Okay, so this is the antivirus. The next security layer is the file reputation lookup. So the file is going through the antivirus security layer. If it's not found based on signatures and the heuristics, also it will also go through the firewall, and if it's a known application to stop the traffic or not, it will go through the HIPs, which we have speaking about, if it's trying to access protected areas. And let's stay until now, and it's still an unknown file. The hash of the file will be uploaded into the cloud, and we will compare it with our whitelist and blacklist, because it's more up to date than what the signatures the endpoint has, because the endpoint it's updating based on a schedule. And so we are comparing it against our whitelist and blacklist. If it's still unknown, we do instant analysis. If we are not able to categorize the file, it will go automatically into the sandbox. Before going automatically into the sandbox, we are comparing it if if it's one of the files that we have been, the administrator has created a whitelist rule, or if it's one application that is from a trusted vendor. So this makes the administrator's job more easy, because we provide a default list with trusted vendors, and also the administrator can create his own trusted files. So if the unknown file, it's in one of these area, it will not go into the sandbox. So if it was whitelisted previously, let's say it wasn't, we are presuming the worst case scenario, it's not in the trusted files, it's not in the trusted vendors, then it will go in the next security layer in the containment environment. And we can see that in the containment environment we have different rules. All applications detected with the reputation malware, they are blocked. Any applications or files that are running from suspicion locations, then they will be blocked also. And anything that is unrecognized, unknown, after it has gone through all the security layers that we have speaking about, it will run in the containment environment. So our agents from the antivirus labs, our colleagues, they have the hash of the file, they will take it apart to find out if it's a good file or a bad file, but until then, until they will be able to categorize it on the endpoint, it will run in the containment environment, and it will be silently, so the user will still be able to open that infected PDF, even if the PDF, let's say, it has something in it, something important. He will be able to open it, read it, print it, but the script embedded into the PDF, it will not infect the endpoint. The sandbox is automatic, and the administrator can review the items that are running in the containment environment using the centralized sandbox. So this means that mainly the sandbox is on each endpoint, and all those items that are running into the sandbox are transmitted back to the ESM server, and the administrator will be able to view them in real time in the centralized sandbox. All those unrecognized files are also found in the unrecognized centralized unrecognized files, so all the files are in real time updated in this area. And the administrator can whitelist the files, delete them, block them, so he can review them and decide which should run on the endpoint, which shouldn't. If he doesn't want to take any action, then that application, that file, that executable, DLL, it will run into the sandbox until it's whitelisted by us. The sandbox is also unique and patent-pending. It's incorruptible and inescapable because we don't use virtualization. There are other vendors out there using virtualized sandboxes, but these are subjected to a number of vulnerabilities. Our sandbox is persistent, so it's staying always above the operating system, and it's ready to intercept any files. It's there always when the system is booting up, when the system is shutting down. Also, a very important thing is that we don't depend on heuristics when an unrecognized file is placed in the containment environment. We decide based on our local and cloud whitelist and blacklist. So mainly everything that Komodo has specified that is a good file, and everything that the administrator has specified that it's a good file or a bad file. So the whole process that I described here, when a file is going through all 5 security layers, is just in a few seconds. So the user is not aware of this process. He will just double-click that PDF file that maybe was received through an email, and he will open it. So it's he will not observe any changes. So let me show you, like for this application, because it's an unrecognized application, what the user does is double click it, and like you can see here, it opened it. He's able to take actions. We know that this item is running into the sandbox because we see this green bar. So this is also depending on the policies. If the administrator wants to have this green bar for the applications executable that are running into the sandbox, he can specify it through the policy. It can be disabled and the item will still run into the sandbox, but without the green bar. But this is a quicker way to identify it. So let's see. So we know that this item is running in the fully virtualized mode. Also, another security layer that is available in Comodo Endpoint Security is the virus scope. So we are monitoring the activity of an unknown file and what it does on the system. So maybe creating a registry key, modifying a system file, and if at some point we are detecting that is malicious, it's placed automatically into the quarantine, and those actions that that executable has done on the system, they will be reversed. Also, in the next release, we will have web filtering, and the administrator will be able to use the option to block phishing sites, malware sites, and also do his own whitelisting and blacklisting. And he will be able to block websites, provide here the also very useful example, so he will know how to create the rules. Whitelisting is the same. We provide the management of the security through the policies that are available, but we also provide system monitoring for the endpoint. So the administrator can set up thresholds for the CPU usage, RAM usage, network usage, and free disk space on the system drive, and he will be alerted if any of these are higher than he has set up through the policy. Then he can right-click on the endpoint, view the events, so assess the issue, why this happened. Also, we can control power options. So when the display should be turned off, hard disk should be turned off, and also when the system should enter in standby or hibernation. So even these that I know that the administrator can control them through the group policy, but much easier with the policy from the ESM, set up the security policy, and at the same time you can do the power options control also. Also, we provide the device management option, so we can lock the USB master devices, optical devices, so the user won't be able to attach any of these to the endpoint. He will be able to attach them, but he won't be able to access them. Also, just if, let's say, the administrator hasn't denied the access to USBs, even if a stick is attached to the endpoint, the stick is infected, then anything that it's found a threat, it's placed automatically in the centralized quarantine. We also protect the security settings and also the system, so we can protect the security settings through a password, and also if the users have local administration rights, then the security settings are protected, and only by supplying the password that was set up through the policy, this is how they will be able to access the settings. But not having it, they will not be able to modify the settings. Also, the administrator can deny local administration altogether, and the administration will be made only through the ESM console. We provide the option to download the signatures from download.comodo.com, but to save some bandwidth, the administrator can add his ESM server, and the endpoint will download the signatures on schedule from the ESM server. By default, it's when the system starts up and every 1 hour, but this is also, so it's every 1 hour, but it's also customizable, so the administrator can choose other settings too. All the events from all 5 security layers are logged, and they are logged in the Comodo format. This is accessible from the reports area from the ESM console, and the administrator can build up the firewall event log, antivirus event log, HIPS, sandbox, so regarding all the security layers. But these can also be sent to a syslog server if it's necessary, and also they are written in a CEF format, and they can be written to a local or network file. And maybe a SIEM agent can get this information from that particular file from each endpoint, or depending how the SIEM agent functions. Also, the events are logged into Windows event logs, and also the ESM console provides the option for the administrators to view all the Windows events from all the endpoints. So at this point, there are 2 possibilities to access the security events from the Comodo Endpoint Security, either through the reports area or just viewing the Windows event. Also, the logs will be archived, so they will be moved and kept for audit purposes. So once the administrator has set up the policy, save the policy. If you want, you can change the name, provide different descriptions to be able to modify it quicker, quick access to all the components, security levels to change it quickly. I didn't specify anywhere. And we will close the policy. We provide the default policy for Mac, so we are able to protect those systems with Mac. Also, a special policy for Windows servers. We support Windows Server 2003 and higher, and for workstation it's Windows XP and higher up to Windows 8.1. The deployment. We believe that we make it easier for the administrators to migrate from one security vendor to us. So he can enable auto discovery if it's an active directory environment, provide the domain controller, username and password, and it will discover any new systems added to the active directory, and also it will discover automatically Linux and Mac operating systems. So once we have enabled the option, we go into the computers area and we go into the unmanaged option. Here it will display all the endpoints that have been discovered and that they aren't protected with Comodo Endpoint Security. At this point, the administrator, all that he needs to do is select the endpoint, click on Manage or Protect. Clicking on Manage, it will install only the ESM agent, and the administrator will have full access to system management, control applications installed, services, browse remotely to the endpoint, open and encrypt the VNC session, view the Windows events, and so on. So only regarding the system management. Going with Protect, which is the best option, we will go with Protect. He can start the deployment. Let's say he has a third-party security software installed. Just check the box to detect the third-party security products and uninstall them first before deploying Comodo Endpoint Security. And also, if a user is using the endpoint, to suppress the reboot. or maybe it's a server that can be restarted at that time. Just suppress the reboot. Going back, click on Start Deployment. It will display the progress of the installation. So first it will use the credentials that the administrator has used to log into the console in order to do the deployment. We use the default shares, $$ and admin$ to copy the packages. They are MSI packages. The ESM agent installation starts first. It's continuing with the Comodo Endpoint Security installation, and depending on the options that you have chosen here, it will reboot or it will postpone the reboot. So this is one way to do the installation, but we also provide access to the offline packages. So if the administrator wants to put them on a network share or do the remote deployment through, I don't know, another security that is deployed on their company, he can do so. It's an executable, and different switches can be used for the deployment. The agent offline package, the package that has the ESM agent and Comodo security bundled in, is the first package, and it also contains the Comodo Antivirus for servers. So it will detect automatically if it's a server or if it's a workstation, if it's a 32 or a 64, and it will install what's proper for that operating system. The wizard is very easy, next, 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 or use the silent and the other switches that are available for the executable. Another way to do the installation is through the option from the computers area. Click on Add, discover all the organization units from the Active Directory where the endpoints are placed. So I will go with the current domain, but custom domain can be specified. Browse through them and select the endpoints. I will choose one. The wizard here is the same, even if the deployment is done for Active Directory, if it's done with network addresses, if it's done for endpoints that are part of workgroup, and so on. So the wizard is the same for all of them. So it's very easy for the administrator to go through them if it's the first time. So we will select one endpoint. You can select the whole organization unit and it will select all of them. It will specify if the ESM server is able to reach that endpoint and only be able to do push remote deployment only if the status is ready. If it's unavailable, either the endpoint is turned off or there are firewall or network issues between the ESM server and the endpoint. So after, let's say, solving those, click on refresh and then it will be able to discover it. File and sharing needs to be enabled in order to reach the endpoint and copy the packages. We can choose which components to be installed on the endpoint. Can choose only if the administrator doesn't want the firewall to be installed on each workstation, then he can choose to go only with the sandbox and antivirus, or only with the sandbox and the firewall. Automatically with all these, all four, the HIPS, the fire reputation, and the virus scope is installed. Of course, uninstall third-party security products and suppress the reboot if it's needed, and start deployment. It will show the progress bar. If deployment fails, the administrator just needs to click on deployment failed, and he will have a suggestion for steps that needs to be followed on the endpoint in order for the remote deployment to be successful. Workgroups, so we can discover all the workgroups available in the network, and also can specify a certain workgroup and discover on the endpoint that are part of that workgroup, and choose the endpoints, and the wizard is the same. Also, he can choose network addresses and a list with IPs, an IP range, IP subnet, or different host names can be added here, and then go through the wizard. Managed computer, this option is available to upgrade let's say if our new version of Comodo Endpoint Security released, and we want to push these updates, program updates to the endpoints, then we can choose the manage computers, and going with this we can specify certain endpoints, so if we want to do it granularly. Also this option, let's say we installed only the agent on the endpoint, we have sent the agent by email because it's a small piece of executable and the user has installed it, and we want to push the security package on that endpoint, then we can choose the managed computers option. We also can do the push deployment for Mac using and Linux or using port SSH22, and this port needs to be opened. If it's listening at another port, then this can be customized. And the wizard is the same for this also. So this is the deployment types that the administrator can use. After this, he can go into the groups area, and all endpoints at first will be in the unassigned group, and they will be using the local policy locally configured and internet policy locally configured. We provide two types of policies. So when the endpoint is inside the local area network, the ESM agent will apply the local policy. When it's outside, maybe the laptop connected to a Wi-Fi from a hotel, then it will apply the internet policy because the ESM agent is network aware. So we are at this point here in the groups. We need to create the group. Okay, we can provide a description. We have created the policy earlier, so this was our policy. If the administrator wants to apply a stricter policy for the internet policy, he can do so. I will apply the same, create the group. So this is how easy it is to create the group. And at this point, go into computers, select your endpoint, and click on save, and the policy, the endpoints will be moved in this group, and they will be using the group's policy. Let's say we don't want it to do it this way. Also, we want to create. So this was ours. We went to go more granular and create other child groups. Let's say, and at this point we can use the parent group policy, clone the policy from the parent, and then maybe modify it, and those changes will be applied, or use a custom policy for that child group. So we can still keep the hierarchy from here, but use customized policy. I will go with parent, and the endpoints can be moved either in the parent or either in the child group. Let's say our endpoints are here, and we will want to move them. So we didn't move them from here. We provide the option to move them from here also. Right click, move to group, and we can select the group. This one, if you want to go with the child group, move the computers, and they will be using the ACCNT1 policy. This is the step that is required. So move those endpoints into groups, apply, and the policy is applied automatically. What about the day-to-day management? Quarantined items, I was saying that it's a centralized quarantine, so all the items that are placed in the endpoints quarantine in CS, the administrator is able to control them from here. We are able to see the file name, the malware category, the file hash, and also on how many endpoints it's residing in the quarantine. And we can see here 2 endpoints, and both of them are online. At this point, we can delete the item. It will be deleted automatically from these endpoints, or restore it, or whitelist it based on the hash of the file in the policy, and apply this update immediately. If we want more information, we can click on the number of the endpoints, and we can see the host names for each endpoint and the threat, from where was detected and when was placed into the quarantine for each one. And if we select one, same options are available: delete, restore, or whitelist in the policy. What about those items that are running into the sandbox on the endpoint? So in the containment environment, we are able to view the file name, the file hash, and on how many endpoints it's running into the sandbox. If it's something that needs to be whitelisted, we can see that by default it's displaying the policy that is used on the endpoints, the ones with the ball. But if we want other endpoints to have this item whitelisted and we want to push the change immediately, we can do so. Click on Add. What about those unknown files, unrecognized files that have been running in the containment environment because the user can't close the application, and the application, let me close this, and the application won't run into the sandbox anymore. So at this point, let's see what we had in the past. So we had these files, the file name, the file hash, file size, when it was first detected, last accessed, and also on the number of endpoints. It's one of here. So this one was. And we can see view the more information about the file. This file, it's not a signed file, file name, version, file size. And also we can view for each endpoint the application activities. So if it had done any modification on the system, created files, created registry keys, or what it modified there, what it created, and so on, the administrator will also be able to view the activity done. So for my application, hasn't done anything, any activity on the endpoint because I just launched it. If any activities are detected, the administrator can go with location to the location from where this file is on this particular endpoint, let's say, and delete any files from that location remotely. Or if it's something that needs to be whitelisted, the process is the same. Also, we provide the access to control the system. So all the applications installed on the endpoint, we can view them. So if it's something that, I don't know, toolbars or any of those applications that get installed without the approval of the user, then the administrator is able to select the application. He can view on how many endpoints this application is installed. Go. Click on it, and then select it, uninstall, and it will be uninstalled silently without any user interaction. And with location, it will browse automatically to this location and provide the administrator the possibility to delete any unwanted files and folders. Let's say also we want to view all the processes running on all the endpoints. The administrator can do so. And if anything unwanted is detected, then it's able to select the executable, and let me see if I can find some. Okay, I will go with this one. If it's something that needs to be, I don't know, maybe it's hanging, you want to kill the process, want to end it, then end the process, and it will be ended from these two endpoints. If we want more information like the PID, on which endpoint, the location, under which user account is running, and the number of threads, just click on the number of endpoints and select all the processes or particular process, go with the end process. If we go only with one, we can go with location. It will browse automatically to the corresponding location from here. Also, we can control the services in real time, so all the services available, running and stopped on the endpoint. So let's say like with the bits, we can stop it or start it on the endpoint. Maybe if we are doing a reset to the Windows update, you can stop the necessary Windows events, bits, and cryptographic, and then you can go and delete the software distribution or rename it, and then start the process again and start again a Windows update, just a case. So any steps that administrator would want to do in a batch on a number of endpoints. We also provide the option for the administrator to be notified by email regarding any issues on the endpoint. So if this needs to be enabled here, and the SMTP options needs to be filled in from each email address. This notification should be sent, and to whom, and when this email notification will be sent, when there are outbreaks. These are the default numbers, but they can be changed. So when the infection happens on more than 3 endpoints every 15 minutes. If malware is found, if the security policy which is applied on the endpoint is non-compliant, if the antivirus signatures, the patterns are out of date, or if they are not reporting back to the ESM server for a longer period of time, or if the license is expiring. So you can choose your thresholds here. Let's speak about a little bit about the reports. I was saying that the administrator is able to build the log reports for the events from each security component. So we have the antivirus, all the reports. The administrator is able to build them in PDF and XLS format. I will go with PDF here. The wizard is the same for each default report. Click on finish. It will gather the information. The administrator is able to double click and review. So like James said, we have the detection and also the identification and removing it, placing it into the quarantine. So we have the computer name, the malware type, location from where it was detected, when it was detected, and the action. For one, it's detected, so like here, and then it was placed in the quarantine. And this is for the antivirus logs. But also the same is, so similar is the firewall event. If any in or out traffic was blocked for a certain network or for a certain application, and so on. Also for the log reports regarding the HIPs and the automatic sandbox. So maybe an application was blocked and was running into the sandbox because it's for trying to interfere with the protected registry or protected COM interfaces. Then the administrator will be able to review the logs, what that application was trying to do, from where it was running, and if it was placed into the sandbox. Other type of reports, the warranty report, to make sure all the endpoints have the warranty enabled, that if they have gone through all the necessary steps to have the warranty enabled, if the security components are the ones that should be used for the warranty. So just build up the report, and the administrator at first glance will be able to review if he has everything set up as it should. Antivirus update report, to know if everything is alright, if the signatures are up to date, when the last update was done on the endpoint, if they are outdated, when the last update happened, and so on. So if there are any network issues, to know why that endpoint wasn't able to pull the signature. We also provide an interesting option, the Assistance Manager. So the users will have running in their system tray the ESM agent, and they will be able to double click on it and ask help from the ESM administrator, and the administrator will be able to expand this Assistance Manager option and assist the users. So here I will click accept, and he will be able to chat with the user. The user will provide more details regarding his issue. Open and encrypted VNC connection can be opened over LAN and WAN, as long as the necessary ports are opened, and he can assist the user remotely. And to have a look about all those chats, the administrator can build the assistance log report. Also, we provide the option to build the product configuration report to know which components are installed and which security levels are used on the endpoint. So to know what, and all these reports can be downloaded and sent by email. Computer's detail report, so if the administrator wants to have all the information, software and hardware information, maybe also include a list for each endpoint with all the applications installed, he can build up the computer details report. So we can build one now, and we will select all the endpoints. Like I was saying, the wizard is the same for all. In 3 steps the report is built. And we can double click it and we can view the information. We have a few charts here regarding the endpoints that have been selected and general information from the endpoint and since when it was managed by ESM. Network information, operating system and hardware information, and I was saying the list of those applications that are installed on the endpoint and when they were installed. Also, this for the software inventory can be built up in XLS format, hardware inventory also. Other filters can be applied after the report is downloaded. Malware statistic report, so regarding all the malware that was detected on the managed endpoint. Policy compliancy report and policy delta report. If the policy is non-compliant, so something on the endpoint was changed by another administrator, the administrator can choose to build up the policy delta report and find out the reason of the non-compliance. Quarantine terms report and top 10 malware report detected in the network. Other actions are available, so the administrator can choose to do these actions per group, per endpoint, using multi-select, and so on. Start full scan, quick scan of the antivirus database, move the endpoint into particular groups. Even if it's part of a group, can use a different security policy and can build up quickly the reports even from the computers area, so from here or from the groups area. To wake up the endpoint, to start the management maybe, if wake up online is enabled in BIOS. Reboot the endpoint, shut it down, and also if it's something that needs to be taken out, maybe a new system is replacing an old system, provide the option with delete, it will uninstall it from the endpoint, and then the administrator can add the new endpoint. Open the remote session. Even if the user hasn't made a request for assistance, administrator can open a remote VNC session like I have started here. At the per endpoint, system management can be also done. So if the administrator wants to manage the quarantine per endpoint, he can do so. View the antivirus events, view the virus scope events, control the applications installed, services running, processes running. And I was saying about the event logs that they are able to review all the events from Windows Event Viewer. So if, let's say, it installed an application, go with the MSI installer, double click the event and see the event ID. If it's an error, can get the error, start the troubleshooting. If it's something that he wants, let's say he received a monitoring alert regarding space running out on the system drive, select the drive, get the 10 largest files from the drive and delete those unwanted files or unneeded files. So can select the file, delete it, or select folder and delete it. So these options are available per endpoint also. All the actions can be also used, so the administrator can use filters to manage the endpoints. If he wants to manage only the outdated ones, infected or non-compliant, or if he wants, he can use custom filtering. So I have ABC group, so I want to manage only the endpoints from the ABC group, so I can do so, and then start the actions from here. So select all the endpoints, let's say, and start an antivirus update. These are mainly the features from the ESM console. There is only one version of Comodo Endpoint Security, so all the features are available. And okay, at this point, if there are any questions, please ask them. James?
Hi, Georgiana.
I don't think I can see the questions
Okay.
window, but if you can, if there are any, maybe you can read those.
Yeah, sure thing. Someone's put a question, can you change the view for the panoramics that we've got?
Yes, of course, we can change it to the list view. Here we have another option to view in real time the progress of the action started from the ESM console. We have another view, the tile view. This is with tiles, and scroll down on the endpoint. So to view all of them, you have to scroll up and down. And the panoramic view, which you already seen, scroll and move.
Okay, super. And there's another question. Okay, so Endpoint Security Manager, for those that aren't aware, it can be done as an MSP offering. The question that's been asked is how easy is it to configure with remote endpoints?
So just send out the ESM agent to the users to get it installed. So mainly using the offline packages, and it will connect automatically to the ESM server because the agent has already all the settings filled in. And in the configuration tool, which is available on the server, you need to have here the real IP filled in, so at which the agent will connect to. Customize the port, so if you don't want to use 9901 and want to use another port, you can do so. And just download the offline package because it's a slim package. Send it out by email, and after this go in the computers area. So once installed, go with the plus option and managed, and push out the security package over WAN to the endpoint.
Okay, super. So for those that aren't aware, the MSP offering is a monthly consumption-based billing. So you'll use the platform, you'll add a customer to it, and you deploy the agent, and you'll do that across all of your customers that you look after, but from the central console. So you'll be given a large entitlement. So say if you were to have 500 customers, would give you an activation key for the usage of 600 seats. And that way you've always got more than you need. And if you need to add a new customer, then you can just add a new customer and use from that entitlement. And at the end of each month, you just report based upon what you've used. So how many agents that you've got out there that you're looking after, not the actual total amount for your entitlement. It's based purely on consumption. And that's flexible billing, of course. So if you lose a customer, that's all right. You just report less one month, and if you gain another customer, you just report more at the end of that month. So that's straightforward and pretty simple. We'll make sure that there is a copy of the recording available, so you can have access to. I will also go through and make sure that the account managers at E92 send over the presentations. If there are any questions that you have, anything that you need to go through, please pop it across. More than happy to help. I mean, there's generally two reasons why people look at endpoint security. One's the technology. In terms of protection, we have it, and the other is commercials. So the standard margin from the retail price, the RRP, you get a 25% discount. So that is a standard discount you get from all of the solutions. But if you were to do sales and technical training, which you can get done within a morning, you actually will be entitled to 30% from the RRP, and that can all be done in half a day. Right, okay. So I mean, where we can also assist in other areas is well, the distributor themselves, so E90 Plus, they're going to help you out with marketing campaigns should you need to push this out towards your customers and give you marketing support. There's a lot of collateral there. There's sales support, and if you actually had a sizable customer that you need assistance with, we can come on site and help you with the proof of concept and make sure that's okay. We also have technical support, which is pretty spot on. There was a configurational issue that someone had, I think it was a couple of days ago now. They popped an email to me at 9:15. I think it was 3 minutes to 10, and they had that issue sorted. So I mean, our tech support, they're pretty much hands-on. If you're having an issue with configuration or whatever it is, then their general response is, would you like us to log into the server and help you? So they'll end up fixing stuff for you and be that sort of second pair of hands if you need be. Also, the marketing development funding, we can offer this. We generate really on a 4-to-1 ratio. If you want £1,000 to generate a marketing campaign or whatnot it is, we would ask you to demonstrate a return on investment of 4 times, so £4,000 in revenue back. So yeah, I mean, and these kind of things are readily available. More than happy to assist with those. I suppose another thing to touch. I mean, one question that was asked was, does anyone else offer this kind of guarantee? And the answer is no. No one does. And I rang up every single vendor that sits in the mainstream. Basically to ask them a very simple question. I rang them up and I said, do your customers get viruses? And they all said yes. I mean, and this I was at the Crime Security Information Congress a few weeks back, and I went around and spoke with a load of the vendors, and there was some really remarkable technologies that they were using, and one of them, which kind of tickled me really, and I was like, oh right, well what's this? Like, oh well, we scan the files at a static code level. And I was like, well, that sounds very cool. I was like, what does that mean? And oh, well, so we went into the big pitch about it. And then at the end of it, I just said, I was like, so do your customers get viruses? And there wasn't an intent to ask the question, but it just came out of my mouth. And he went, of course they do. And at that point, we both laughed. And I just thought, well, actually, so I mean, regardless of how great you can sell the technology and how great the marketing is behind it, I mean, the fact is, does it work? And well, in these cases, no. And all the other solutions out there, they are identification and remove, and everyone here, I'm sure, would be aware of avtest-.org. These guys, what they do, they're testing. So all these testings where you get there with the comparisons for AV against AV, they install an agent. So if you're not aware of this is how it happens. They install an agent onto a desktop. A virus onto that desktop, and then they install the agent, and then they ask whether or not that agent can clean that off. So whether or not that agent can identify it and then remove it. And that's what they ask from it. So where you see these, they've got 100% and 98%, and these were the best out of our 6 testings. All they do is they create an infected device. But by the way, it means that the device is already infected. That's your network. You've already got the problem. And then they see whether or not that can remove that file. And so that's identification and removal. And we've challenged them, and we've turned around and said, look, we'll pay for the whole testing, but what we want you to do is install the agent and then see if you can get that virus on the device. And quite honestly, when this test was done not so long ago, and we were the only person to pass 100% of all tests, and this was with AVG, Avira, Bitdefender, Trend Micro, ESET, Sophos, Kaspersky, F-Secure, all of these guys out there. Not one of them passed all of the tests. So it meant that there was government, and the software they used was a German government surveillance piece of software where it sat there in the background. And you didn't know it was doing it. It wasn't slowing down your machine. It wasn't crashing the systems. It wasn't trying to encrypt your estate. But what it was doing was sitting there and monitoring everything that went in and out of your network. And so a virus, and some of you are aware, you have to, with legacy antivirus, it needs to do the scan to identify all the heuristics. The heuristics being a slight intelligence engine behind it. But even with the heuristics, I mean, you've probably got 2 to 3 minutes before it'll pick it up and it'll note that that's a bad action that's it's trying to carry out. And what it can do is, if it's an attachment, it'll go through, you'll open it, and then before you know it, it's attached itself to your address book from Outlook. And then that, within 30 seconds, this has already sent it outside the organization. And you can imagine, I mean, what kind of information that Outlook address book contains, and all your files there with it. And you can do it within 30 seconds. And like I said, it takes about 2 to 3 minutes for it to identify it and flag it up. So I mean, this is it really. It's how much you value, how much does your customer value their data, and I suppose protection at the same time. But yeah, so if anyone out there wishes to use the software, so for all partners, we offer a internal use NFR copy. So it's the full blown application. It's either for 10 or 25 seats, depending upon the size of the organisation internally, and it's for 12 months as well. So okay, well that's all from me. We'll touch base, I'm sure, with your account managers over at the distributor, and they'll get in touch and obviously find out the next steps. But yeah, that's all from me. So thank you ever so much, and Georgiana, thank you for taking time today.
Thank you also everybody for attending.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thanks very much. Cheers then.
Okay, I would like to introduce also in here. He will be assisting today if there's